Hey, thanks for downloading the show. Welcome to Garden Fork Radio. This is Eric, your host. I have a YouTube channel and this podcast, and I make videos and want to share interesting DIY-ish stuff. And I bring my friends on to talk about it. And today I have my friend Erin from The Impatient Gardener. Welcome.
Hi, Eric.
Full disclosure, we're recording this in the evening. We both have had a glass of wine.
I think you're being perhaps generous by saying a glass of wine.
Well, I'm just starting mine, so I hear a glass moving.
No, that was tea. I swear to God, I've moved on to tea.
But anyway, welcome everyone. We're going to talk about, I sent 3 articles to Erin. We were going to talk about plastic in the ocean, don't get weighed down by idea debt, kind of following up on our podcast with Rich G last week. And something else. Oh, and the history of the OXO carrot peeler. Isn't that exciting?
It is exciting. Before you get on to that, I think we need to just briefly talk about the headphones that I'm using to record this podcast today, which you were very nice to send me, because my last set of headphones were destroyed by my dog.
And to get her on the podcast, I was like, here, I'll send you some headphones.
It was extremely generous of you. Thank you so much for that. That was very nice. In the meantime, this dog is destroying. I've never dealt with this with a dog. It's a very interesting situation that we're in. She's getting a little better, but we go through phases, and she's well over a year old now. So I've never had a dog destroy anything before. So this is all a new thing for us. And one of the items that she hit in a particularly good week was those headphones. So anyways, thank you for sending those over so that we could talk.
Yeah. So Dorothy's your new pup's name, right?
Yep. Yes, that's right.
And she's just kind of maybe she's just kind of mouthing everything, kind of very like discovery through her chewing.
I actually think she's perhaps dealing with a little bit of separation anxiety or something.
Uh-huh.
So, and I've tried all those things that, you do, like we can't over exercise her because she's got a little potential orthopedic issue that we hope she's going to grow out of. So I can't over exercise her to the point of exhaustion.
Right.
And I've tried doing like the brain games and lots of training. But she just finds things and then she destroys it. And she goes quick. You turn your back for 1 minute and it goes from one little chew to obliterated. So, but the good news is that, I mean, my concern, in addition to all the stuff she's earning, is I don't want her to get hurt because she chews something and eats it, and then you end up with her getting sick or whatever. Right. So we've learned how to contain the situation and clear the area. Oh, and she breaks out of crates, so it's difficult to leave her in a crate as well. So every dog teaches you lessons, and this one is teaching me lessons that she's teaching me many, many lessons, including patience.
So you're going to put the headphones on a high shelf then.
Oh, yeah, the headphones go in the room. We now have a whole room full of stuff that the door is closed all the time so the dogs never get in here.
Well, cool. So you are the head of a sailing magazine, so that deals with the ocean and hurricanes and things like that. And there's been this big push for talking about the giant garbage thing in the middle of the ocean, which is mainly plastic. And so cities are banning plastic straws. They seem to be the bête noire. Is that maybe the French word for that? That was a big word. The bad guy in all this is plastic straws. And that's really not the case, is it?
Well, certainly it's not. And, if you ever see pictures of the Pacific garbage patch, you can tell it's a whole mix of a whole bunch of stuff. But as you pointed out in the article that you sent over here, I mean, it's mostly fishing nets and things like that.
Yeah, for commercial fishing, they use these very large nets. And when they're starting to fail, or they can lose them because, the lines break or something, they just dump them because they don't want to, they're not going to the ones that don't have any ethics are just not going to reel it back in and recycle it. They're just going to dump it in the ocean and drive away. And that not only kills fish and traps animals, it contributes to this giant garbage thing. So
right. So an interesting little fact about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is that I don't know if you've seen this, but recently there's been a giant boom that was sort of floating foam boom that was just deployed, and it's the first one. And this is the invention of a young man named Boyan Slat, and he has done a TED Talk on this idea. And he was like, when he did his TED Talk, he was like 17 years old, and he came up with this idea of how to corral the plastic in the Pacific Garbage Patch, which sort of forms because there's all these eddies and currents that all sort of pull it into the same place. And they've recently deployed the first one, and I guess they're going to see how this goes. I believe he's Dutch, if I'm not mistaken, but it's an interesting concept, and it was an idea by a kid who, you know, just became essentially led the charge on this whole thing and got funding for it.
How cool is that? And the Dutch are very tied to the water because most of their country is below sea level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what do you think about this idea of banning straws, though? Are you against that? Are you for that?
I think it brings attention to the problem. I think the bigger issue actually for the average person are loose plastic bags. Because at least in cities like mine, I pick up probably 8 or 10 plastic bags a day that are just tumbleweeding down the street. And when it rains, like it just rained now, those plastic bags get swept into the storm drain. And the storm drains, because they overwhelm the New York City sewer system, they get dumped into the ocean. And so those plastic bags are contributing to the ocean plastic. And that's a much easier thing to deal with. I think you can cut down on the amount of straws, but if you cut down on the amount of plastic bags you used, I think that would make a much bigger impact.
I agree with you entirely on that. You know, I think the one good thing that came out of this straw thing, as you mentioned, is awareness. Because, you know, I think the straw thing all started because it was sort of this viral video of a sea turtle with a straw stuck up its nose.
Right.
And people were horrified by this. And I do think it brought an awareness that was not there of people going, "Oh my God, this is going in our waterways. This is terrible." But certainly there are more plastic bags are a bigger issue. Are plastic bags outlawed by you? Obviously not. They're still allowed to be used.
You know, there's a back and forth animosity between our mayor and our governor, and I think eventually they will be banned. But the governor always likes to stick his thumb on anything that the mayor of the city does, and then he turns around and does what the mayor was about to do and takes all the credit. So
we have a situation here in which our governor actually sort of pushed through a law in a series of he signed about 30 things into law in one night very quickly, and one of those things was a law that does not allow communities to set ordinances related to plastic bags. Yeah. So even if you wanted to, just as a community, you cannot do that in the state of Wisconsin, which is interesting. I tell you what, I really have gotten aware of this problem just in the past, I would say 2 years or so. Before that, I was always doing my best to take my reusable bags to the grocery store. But in the past 2 years or so, I basically try not to ever take a plastic bag. Like, I will do whatever I can to avoid that.
Yep.
And I do think that's part of a lot. I think that came because it's constantly in your face, and there's sort of this anti-plastic message always out there. And so I think I'm just a lot more aware of it. So I know I personally have been a lot better about this in the past.
Yeah, and if you guys want to affect change, you can do that by voting. You can register to vote. And there are various deadlines for that at voter.org. But October this month is kind of the deadline for registering to vote in the November election. So you can affect some change that way, you know. The other thought I had, you might be able to affect some change with the fishing fleets by, I don't know if the word is pressure, but bringing your concerns up to where you buy fish, or buying fish at a farmer's market, at least on the coast. If you want to buy fish, you can go to the farmer's market, and it's literally from Long Island, and they drive it in, and it's fished by line and not these giant commercial trawlers out in the middle of the ocean. It's these, 5 guys in a boat kind of thing. So that's how you can affect that. Fresh water. Well, I mean, can you at a farmer's market buy fish from Lake Michigan?
No, I don't. I've never seen that. No, but you can, not at a farmer's market, but you can go to local fishmongers basically, and local fish shops do have fresh fish from Lake Michigan.
All right. We could have some perch.
Oh, perch is so good. Lake perch, not ocean perch. It's a different thing. Lake perch is great. One other thing on the plastic thing, I think sometimes people envision these ideas of these big plastic bags floating around in the Pacific. Well, they're in every waterway, but the bigger issue with those is plastic never goes away. It just breaks down into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces.
Right.
So what you end up with is this essentially a sludge of microplastic, and that's what the fish are consuming, and that's what we are consuming when we consume fish. And a lot of times, apparently, they're starting to find microplastics in some bottled water. So we're eating microplastics all the time because we can't avoid it because there's so much out there. So, people think of giant chunks of plastic, but really the real issue is what that plastic becomes 40, 50 years down the road.
Yikes.
Yeah.
All right. That was a great subject. Great topic.
Very, very cheery.
All right. Instead, we're going to get on to motivating. This is from Lifehacker. Actually, I'll link to this, but this and the previous article were from Lifehacker, which is a site I really like. I get all sorts of inspiration and ideas. They have a podcast called The Upgrade. But there's a woman there, Alicia Adamczyk. It's a check your cranium name, Adamczyk. I'm going to ruin that. But it says, don't get weighed down by idea debt. And I talked a little bit about this with Rich G last week, and which I thought was a pretty good podcast. It seemed to be okay. It was.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great.
I thought maybe it was too much of an Eric, letting everyone behind Eric's curtain a little too much. But
everybody likes getting behind your curtain.
But it's all about just following through and stop thinking about it and just start doing it, because I'll just read the pull quote and then we can go from there. Idea debt is when you spend too much time picturing what a project is going to be like, too much time thinking about how awesome it will be to have this thing done and in the world, too much time imagining how cool you will look, how in demand you'll be, how much money you'll make, and way too little time actually making the thing.
Yeah. How many things do you have? I mean, how many sort of ideas do you have in your head where you can recognize immediately that you've done all those things?
The plywood boat in my basement that you told me I need to build.
Yeah, right.
That really stuck in my head the other day when we were talking, and you said, you need to build another boat.
Yep.
And I'm like, how does she know I have all the pieces downstairs?
I didn't, but now the secret's out and now there's no excuses.
I can relate to this in a couple of ways, but I actually, when I exercise, I watch YouTube videos, and a lot of them are how to have better YouTube videos, how to be a better YouTuber. And basically this one guy says over and over, if you want to have better YouTube videos, stop watching how to be better YouTube videos and go out and make your own videos. And that's basically it. Stop reading about how to optimize your tags and how to optimize your headlines and thumbnails, and just go out and start doing it. So,
well, there's something to be said for that, for sure. In this article, the one thing that sort of resonates with me is they talk about this idea of, she calls it Ohio, only handle it once. And the idea is she says, as soon as you think of an idea, as soon as an email lands in your box, take care of it then and there. And I get that. But if I did that, I would never get anything done, because I would jump around from one thing to another. Like, I have a real hard time staying focused on one task at a time without multitasking or getting my attention distracted by something else. And sometimes I think, if every time an email popped up, I went and dealt with it right there, I would be doing nothing but email all day.
I actually look at email less than once a day now.
I think that's a very smart idea. I've actually tried to stop looking at email first thing in the morning, because, you look at it first thing in the morning and then 2 hours later, you feel like you've accomplished nothing in your day and all you've been doing is dealing with email all morning.
Yeah, I like today it was raining, so it was kind of an inside computer day, and I turned on Facebook. By the way, the Firefox web browser has what's called a Facebook container add-on, in which you can have Facebook open in a window, and it prevents Facebook from tracking all the other stuff you're surfing. So it doesn't do that giant sweep of information about you. But I went on there to post some stuff on the Garden Fork Facebook page in the discussion group, but it just becomes this black hole because they're so good at making you look at what your friend posted. And I wasted a half an hour, and I'm like, I got to get better at just shutting that thing off and going and working on stuff. So
it's a giant time suck for sure. I will say on this idea in this article, one of the things that was really driven home on this idea to me from the beginning, where I work, the person who manages me there has always said, when we have an idea, just do it. So if we're going to redesign, let's say we're redesigning the magazine or something, he will always say, nope, redesign it as we go along. Like tackle one thing at a time instead of waiting and doing a redesign in which you wait a year before you get it done because you often never get there then.
Yeah.
Redesign one section at a time and launch it like that and roll it out like that. And we've gotten a lot of things accomplished by just stopping talking about it and doing it as best we can at that time. And B, never once have we ever heard a comment from somebody who says, well, it looks like you only redesigned half of your magazine, or why does this part look different and this other part doesn't look different or something. Nobody, you're the only one who's overanalyzing it like that. So it is something to be said for, if you don't just do it right now, you are never going to get to do it.
Yeah, I'm much better at filling in time. Like, we're doing this later in the evening, and so I was like, okay, I have like 45 minutes here. So I just acted on a bunch of stuff I had laying around, and it was a beautiful thing. I got a couple things done. So
there you go.
The other last article I wanted to talk about it's from Fast Company, and it is the untold story of the vegetable peeler that changed the world. And it's all about the OXO Swivel, which is a carrot peeler, a potato peeler, carrot peeler. And I have one, and I love the thing. And it's a whole story about how it came about. And it actually was designed for people with arthritis.
Yeah, it's a crazy story, and it's a great story of just somebody who just identified a problem and just fixed and just solved it. Figured out how to make that work and went from there, and is now, obviously, it was a huge success.
And the other smart thing I thought is that they had an idea, they had a design idea, and they wanted to make these kitchen tools, but they had never done anything in the retail or kitchen field before, kitchen products in the retail field. So they partnered with somebody who knew how to do that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important. An example of that I see here a lot is that twice now in my neighborhood, somebody has opened up a coffee shop, a little a Brooklyn-y artisanal coffee shop, where everyone sits with their laptops, and I make fun of them, but I'm one of those people with the laptop, and, but they've never had any food retail experience before, and they fail. And I'm just like, why didn't you go work at a food place and learn before you dump your $200,000 into your coffee shop? It's a really hard, you're going to sink all this money in, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of due diligence. It's just like, oh, hey, I got an idea. Let's open up a coffee shop,
Right.
So these guys took and ran with it, but they worked with someone that knew what they were doing.
Right. And I think that's a great lesson as well, is you identify what it is that you want to do, and then you find the people who are good at doing the other parts of it that maybe you either A, aren't good enough in, or B, aren't interested in necessarily learning what it takes to do those parts of it.
That's the title of last week's podcast was it Find Someone to Fill in Your Weak Spots or something like that?
Right.
That's what Rich told me to do. So if you're out there...
I want Rich to find me... Eric's looking for an executive assistant.
Yeah, I can't really pay a lot. It'll be like part-time and flaky Eric, but
And if you have any free time, you can come do some stuff for me.
the first thing I want is someone to help get people booked on the podcast. Because like I've been thinking about, oh yeah, I should email Erin and get her back on the show for a month. And then I finally texted you, I'm like, but how, I'm like, I need someone to kick me in the head. So I just think it'd be fun to have more interesting guests, because just kind of paper over my boringness here and bring on interesting people. Anyway, that's in Fast Company, so I'll link to that one. So. Do you shop on Amazon? I shop locally and also on Amazon and other online stores. If I need something very specific, like seat covers for the new used car we just bought, I will go online and sometimes use Amazon. And Garden Fork happens to have a dedicated shopping page on the Amazon site now, which is very cool. It is an affiliate linked page. We do get a finder's fee for anything that you buy when you start shopping from that page. But I list there interesting items that I think are worthy of the Garden Fork DIY person. It's amazon.com/shop/gardenfork. If you would start your Amazon shopping experience, no matter what you're looking for on Amazon, start it at Garden Fork, and that would be great. It's amazon.com/shop/gardenfork. That's amazon.com/shop/gardenfork. So Erin, what's going on in your world? You've got raised beds. You've got these giant, well, I won't use the word, what I would use, those very large raised beds in a kind of manicured way.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about this project. Probably in spring we talked about this. What you and everyone else should know is that this sort of turned into, and I'm sure you probably saw this coming in your infinite wisdom, but this turned into a real buster of a project because it is still not finished. As we speak, I have 6 tons of decorative stone in my driveway.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah, indeed. Wow. All 6 tons of which need to be moved over to the vegetable garden and spread over the layer of paver base that I had put down there. And then I guess sometime before the ground completely freezes, I've got somebody coming to put up a fence. But I stopped adding up how much money I was spending on this vegetable garden about 2 months ago. But I have enough of an idea in my head to know that it is costing at least 3 times as much as I ever thought it would, if not more.
Oh, wow.
But it just sort of got to this point where it's like, well, I've done this much. I'm like, whatever, let's just go whole hog in. But I will tell you that when I started this whenever we started this, April or May, I expected that by June I would have a complete vegetable garden with a fence on it and all the stuff done. And here we are sitting here in October. I'm still finishing up this bit. The fence will get done sometime, probably in November. It's, I guess maybe I'm either, I don't think I'm a realist when it comes to projects. I don't know if I'm an optimist, but I'm certainly not a realist. And this is another one that sort of taught me that my expectations are often completely unrealistic, at least as far as time and money goes. That said, it's going to be fabulous, and I'll be very happy. Like all big projects, I will be very happy that we've done it once it's over.
So what kind of a deer fence? Is it just going to be like one of those kind of plasticky ones I see, or is it going to be a wooden one? Or
it's going to be what some people call them cattle panels or hog panels.
Oh, yeah.
Like welded wire, like 4-inch square welded wire between some posts.
Yep, that'll work great.
Yep. So. And that should keep those guys out. I was hoping to find, I have seen pictures of some of that kind of wire that has, 4-inch squares at the top, but at the bottom, it's like 2-inch by 4-inch. They add in another line of wire in there to keep out rabbits and stuff. But none of the fencing companies I talked to could find anything like that in a 6-foot high in a 6-foot height. So I might have to go back and put some chicken wire or something along the bottom if rabbits become an issue in there.
I actually saw a rabbit in my yard about 2 weeks ago, and that is very unusual for where I live because we have coyotes. And it's living in one of my sheds, I realized.
Oh,
So,
well, it's got itself a nice little home.
well, for now, until the coyotes get hungry and they start to get closer to the house. So,
We never used to have rabbit problems either, in part because we do have some coyotes here, but I think more than that, we have a fairly healthy fox population
yep.
here. But the past couple of years, I've been seeing more rabbits than we ever have before. So who
Not
knows?
good. So
No.
what's going on in the sailing world? What's the gossip in the sailing world?
Oh gosh, there is no gossip. Yeah, the sailing world is just always good. It's just one of those things that you only really go sailing if you like sailing. So there's never really anything bad about it.
All right.
I'm very fortunate to work in an area where basically everyone's really happy about being a part of that whole thing. So I was just out at a very large boat show in Annapolis. It's the biggest in-water sailboat show in the country. So the whole industry is always there, and they always are introducing new boats. The sailing industry is doing very well because, as it turns out, hurricanes are very good for the sailboat industry because a lot of people got insurance when their sailboats went away last year in the hurricanes.
I never thought of that that's like driving the economy.
It is. It's actually the healthiest I've seen the sailing industry since 2008. So, I mean, I don't know. It'll be a temporary bump, but it might be. But it's interesting. Everyone seemed very positive, and there was a lot of people shopping. You could tell there was some people there who must have had insurance checks in their pockets because there were some serious shoppers there.
Is there anything like new that you never would have thought of that you're seeing on sailboats?
No, but there's a lot more automation that's going into sailboats, and I'm sort of torn as to whether it's probably a good thing. But something that came out a couple of years ago was a joystick controller that controls essentially a bow thruster pod at the front, but
Yep.
you can dock a boat with a joystick, and the boat, you can control it so precisely that you can actually spin the boat in a slip. And it's remarkable. And when they first introduced this, one of the things that the boats that were offering this found was that if they could bring a family who was shopping for a boat on board and there was a kid on board, they would give that kid, they'd say, here, you do it. Because kids knew how to do it better than anyone else because it was just like playing a video game. So, I will tell you, sometimes those things are probably great. They open up the door for a lot of people to feel more comfortable. I mean, docking is maybe one of the things that people are most concerned about when it comes to managing a boat. And it actually limits the size of boat that some people will buy because it's more difficult to dock a larger boat. So anything they can do on those fronts to make that process simpler and make people a little bit more comfortable with it is probably a good thing. That was a pretty novel thing, and now there's all sorts of other automations that are coming onto boats.
In Brooklyn, we have a luxury liner pier in Red Hook, and I think the liners that dock there have the sides thrusters because there aren't too many tugboats when they come to dock. I mean, there's a couple around, but it seems like they're almost like self-docking. They just kind of like, they pull up and they throw some ropes and there they are. So
Yep.
And when they are docked, I live in Sunset Park, and the park we have is on a bluff that looks over Red Hook, which is where the marina is. And when they are docked at night, it looks like a giant city is down in Red Hook.
Wow.
Because the boats are so big and they're all lit up. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't really have any desire to get on one of those boats, but it is interesting to look at.
Yeah, that's fun. That's always fun to look at. This morning, we've had a really strong breeze blowing here for the past couple of days. And so all of the freighters on the lake are tucked in very close to our side of the shore. So today there were several freighters who were probably only maybe 1.5 miles or 2 miles off of shore. So it's always fun to watch them go by because they're huge. I mean, these are lake freighters most of them are 1,000 feet long. So it's always fun to see those guys go by.
Wow. What are they hauling usually?
That is a good question. It used to be, and it still is to some extent. In some cases, it's coal. A lot of cement. It's a lot of building type stuff like that.
All right, cool. I remember watching the freighters when I was on going fishing on Lake Michigan, so that's a memory.
There's a great app, and I'm going to look it up right now so that I can tell you what it is. I believe it's called Marine Tracker, and it's an AIS tracker. And so you can go on there, and it will tell you what boat is what. It'll tell you how fast it's going. You just click on the little map. So if you see if I see a freighter out there, I'll just click on the map, go see who it is. It'll tell you what they're hauling, how big it is, how fast they're going, where they're coming from, where they're going to. It's fascinating. It's fun.
I bet they have one of those for airliners too, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly like that. It's exactly like that.
Because I'm on the approach to LaGuardia here, so there you can see them queuing up in the sky. It just looks like a line of airplanes, and I'm like, they're all in line. It's pretty fascinating.
I bet that's cool.
It's fun. I'm not complaining. So, all right, well, cool. Well, I think we filled up some time, and if we talk any longer, I will not be able to finish my wine here. So.
Well, you better get on that. We can't have that happen.
So we can find Erin at theimpatientgardener.com. And also, you're pretty active on the Garden Fork discussion group there.
Yeah, I try to pop in when I can. And, you have so many great people are really some amazing growers, gardeners there, and people who are canning and preserving food. And it's a very creative bunch of people. And I love seeing what people are up to there.
Those people don't suffer from idea debt, do they?
You know what? If we asked them, they would probably say they did. But the appearance is that they are go-getters and they got it handled.
I know who the biggest go-getter is. It's Will Wallace. So
he does a lot of things.
If anyone doesn't know who Will is, he's on the YouTube channel is The Week I'm Homestead, but he's very active on the Garden Fork discussion group Facebook page, which I'll link to in the show notes here. But boy, he has a lot of energy, that guy. But he's a good guy, so I like that.
Absolutely.
All right, so here we go. Thanks for your time, boss.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Garden Fork Radio's executive producer is Jimmy Goots of hollowbooks.com, and our music is licensed from uniquetracks.com.